All right. Rand Jerris, thank you for joining the Environmental Transformation Podcast and welcome.
Thank you. Thanks. My pleasure to be with you, Sean. Thanks so much.
You bet. I'm going to give the listeners a little update or a bio actually on you. Rand, you're the USGA's Senior Managing Director of Public Services, and you oversee a variety of functions, including the research, science, and innovation, and the USGA Green Section, the USGA Golf Museum, the Regional Affairs, and some strategic planning. Sounds like you've got a lot on your plate there. And you also are an author. You've got, I think, two or three books out there on the topics of golf and maybe some golf course design and the legends of the players back in the day. Haven't seen those yet, but I'm excited to check them out.
Thank you. Thank you. Yeah, it's an interesting job, interesting set of responsibilities that I have. I really got started as a college student working at the USGA in the museum. Was an art history major, interested in maybe museum career and museum studies, and ended up on the history side. But it was also a geosciences major focused on environmental geology.
Oh, okay, perfect.
And my career path at the USGA is sort of curiously combined both those interests in history and environmental issues through the years. And while they're very diverse, my responsibilities in some ways sort of reflect a little bit my background.
Well, that's great. So you got a little bit of a geology degree background there with that. Obviously, I do environmental consulting, and so we're always doing site investigations, fate and transport, hydrogeology type work. And that's not the only thing we do. Obviously, environmental compliance and sustainability and things like that. But no, it's good to talk to someone else who has a little bit of some background in that. That's good.
Yeah.
So I was looking on the website, doing some research. You guys have got a nice little program started. And what I've been reading about is a lot of your interest in digital innovation and big data and how that's really helping the game and helping the USGA, advance some environmental sustainability practices. So I wanted to kind of dive into that. And so, the USGA has looked towards technology and to help become more sustainable, both economically and environmentally. So what types of technologies are the USGA working with to achieve its goals of, more holistic approach to the game of golf?
Sure. So I think the most interesting thing that we're developing is an app that really creates a digital map of a golf course that we can start to layer information into that map about course maintenance practices and critical resource consumption issues and opportunities. So we'll literally take a satellite image of a golf course, create a digital map of all of the features on the golf course, breaks that golf course map into discrete polygons. And each polygon can be assigned data that starts with identifying what it is. Is it a bunker, a green, a tee? Is it fairway? Is it rough? And then the course operator can start to layer in all of the resources that they're using to maintain that golf course. How much water are they putting down? Nutrients, pesticides, energy. Consumption, labor consumption. And you can start to understand how each feature of the golf course consumes resources, and then enable a whole series of, like, I'll call them what if scenarios. What if I were to redraw or redefine the shape of the green or extend the fairway or narrow the fairway? And it will instantly recalculate based on your maintenance practices, your consumption of a specific resource. So if you've got a challenge or a problem and say, look, our water district wants to reduce, responsibly reduce our water consumption by 20%, I can now engage in a series of, with the app, I can start to redraw that map of my golf course and instantly determine and identify how much resource calculation is going on. So that's a fun little tool. We then layer that with GPS. Is where it gets really interesting. So we will send a kit of 100 GPS devices. There's the size of a book of matches. Every golfer puts them in their pocket, and it measures their location in time and space every 5 seconds. We download that at the end of your round, and we can see exactly where you've been on the golf course. Now, layer that for 100 golfers over the course of a day. You get this map of spaghetti strings, colored spaghetti strings over the golf course. But what it shows you is where golfers are playing and where they're not playing from. And so you may
Right.
find that element of the golf course that you're putting a lot of water into, that you're putting energy into, that you're putting labor into, but in fact, nobody's playing there. Nobody hits it there.
Right.
And we do this over the course of a week, and you really get a real strong map that shows you how a golf course landscape is actually being used. Now, intersect that with your polygons, with your map of how resources are being consumed, and we
Mm-hmm.
can instantly find opportunities to reduce resource consumption.
Wow. So how did you guys come up with that idea to start that with the,
Yeah.
the GPS review, research and
Yep.
the polygon? I mean, how did that I mean, how did that
Yep.
come about?
Yeah, so we actually started all of this by studying slow play, pace of
Oh,
play, the
wow.
time it takes for
Yeah.
a golfer to move around a golf course. We wanted to, because it's one of the big challenges the game has. Like
Right.
in today's time compressed society, people don't have time for a 5 or 6 hour round of golf.
No, no,
Um,
no.
Golf used to be 4 hours, or at 9 holes, it can be a 90
Two.
minute, but you run into traffic control problems on the golf course. We wanted to understand where bottlenecks were happening on the golf course. And so we got to understand how a golfer is moving. So that's where we started using the GPS. Initially was simply to study pace of play. And then as we started to create these maps of golfer movement, we all started to say, wait a minute, this is telling us something really different. This is really highlighting for us, the
Another
bunker. Yeah,
component,
another
right?
another component. So
Oh,
okay,
wow.
now how do we intersect this? So we found it, and then we found a partner who's working with us that had digital maps of 35,000 golf courses around the world.
Mhm.
And we took that as sort of our base layer and then started to build the technology on top of it.
Mhm.
And you put these together and you find some great opportunities. There's some interesting learnings too, like things you wouldn't expect. The most for per square foot, the most expensive piece of a golf course to maintain is a bunker. That guy's like, okay, it's
Really?
a hole in the ground
I would not have
filled with
thought that.
sand,
Yeah.
labor. It is incredibly
Oh,
labor
to
intense,
keep them,
right? Yep. So now
maintained and prepped.
yep,
Yeah.
yep. But and where I think the tool from an environmental perspective, I think there's probably two really significant developments that are emerging.
Uh-huh.
The first is when we can take maintained turf out of maintenance.
Right.
So a lot of golf courses are irrigating in the rough. They're putting fertilizer down in the rough. They're mowing in the rough. So there's energy, there's labor, there's water, right. And anytime you water
Mhm.
grass, it's just like it's what we've learned through the course of our research for 100 years. If you water grass, it grows, right?
Sure.
So this
Absolutely.
fundamental cycle of putting water down creates this whole series of resources that are used. If we can get you to stop mowing that grass because no one's actually hitting it there,
Right.
we can achieve really significant advances on resource consumption.
Water.
So,
Yeah.
yep. So we're really focused on taking water out of play, and then we're helping golf courses um, use the tool to reduce water consumption because that's I think the biggest threat to the game sustainability. One of our great environmental challenges of our generation is water.
Yeah.
Supplies of water, and golf courses, quite honestly, we've been addicted to water through the years. We need to reduce that dependency on critical water resources. This becomes a great tool for allowing us to do that.
Well, water consumption, there's a lot there with that topic, but I play a lot of golf myself. My daughter played golf in high school, got to, be a coach and really enjoy the game. If the golf courses would focus, I would think if they just focus on watering the fairways and the
Mhm.
greens and not worried about the rough. The rough is kind of a penalty almost anyways if you
Yep.
don't hit it accurate. So that would probably just really reduce the amount of water consumption by just kind of focusing on those narrow aspects of, watering
Yep.
the course, right?
Yep, yep. That's exactly right. And we can go into what we're finding with the tool. We can go into almost any golf course and take 20 to 30 acres of turf out of maintenance.
Wow.
And if you're maintaining 60 to 80 acres, you're talking about very quickly a 25, 30, 40% reduction in resources just from using the tool for 2 weeks. And that's really pretty exciting.
So how does a course go about, trying to understand this information? Do they reach out to you guys and then you guys just like send those little GPS units out to them to the golf shop and they, everybody who signs up to play around, they say, here, put this in your pocket
Mhm,
and give it
mhm.
back to us when you're done, type
Yep.
thing.
Yep, that's basically how it works. So we have, in addition to simply being able to send out the devices, the
Mm-hmm.
USGA has agronomists, usually PhD agronomists, trained in agronomic turfgrass issues, also environmental issues, it's our course consulting service, and they will go out and spend a half a day or a full day at a facility to get full advantage of the tool and the GPS information. Sometimes you need an expert to come in and help you out, and we'll
Mm-hmm.
do that with them. We'll send an agronomist for the day, really understand where their challenges are, run the tool for a week or 2 weeks, and then help them interpret the data and start talking about changes and improvements that they can make.
So I was looking, I was reading through on the website about this tool, and it really was fascinating. But also, I kind of took away some things that it also brought to light, which was, the areas that have super high traffic that
Mhm.
need, constant, attention, and basically, investment into infrastructure within the course itself. So it seemed like that was another highlighted benefit of seeing, okay, these are my high traffic areas. I don't need to spend
Yeah.
as much money doing something over here when this is where my big problems are.
Yep, yep. And look, and layer that so you get traffic patterns, and then we're
Mhm.
doing quite a bit of research these days on, I'm going to call it the golfer experience.
Mhm.
What are all these things that layer into your experience as a golfer on the golf course to say, wow, that was a great round of golf, a great experience, or a terrible experience? And golfers want their putting greens to be in really good condition. They
Yeah.
want their
Yeah.
tees to be in really good condition. And other than that, it's nice if the fairways are mowed, but tees and greens. So
Yeah.
if you layer what the consumer's telling you with what the data is telling you, you start to have some powerful insights into how you can manage your resources in your golf course differently than you had in the past.
I like a good bunker that's in decent shape too if I do
Yep.
hit it in there, because usually I'll find that a lot of the bunkers aren't in good shape
Are in
when
good
we're
shape.
around.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
They're not like PGA Tour quality, that's for sure.
And then look, you say that there's one of the big challenges I think that the typical golf course faces is the typical golfer consumer that watches golf on the weekend sees a PGA Tour golf course. It's beautiful, it's
Pristine.
immaculate, it's green,
Yeah.
it's pristine, without understanding all of the work that goes into getting that golf course ready for 1 week. To peak for 4 days takes an incredible planning effort and a
Mhm.
lot of focus and a lot of resources. But if golfers don't understand that, they say, well, if the tour can do it every week, why can't my local golf course offer me that experience throughout the whole playing season? So
Mhm.
the expectations of the consumer have sort of risen. I often talk about the worst thing that happened to golf is the confluence of golf and color television. Um, because now golfers see green golf courses and that's what they want and expect their superintendent to deliver. Well, that is economically and environmentally unsustainable to have that
Right.
expectation for a golf course 6 months a year. It's just not going to
Right.
happen.
Right, right. Well, so some of the other advances that I've seen in the past few years is GPS and mobile apps and being able to do distance monitoring from any golf course.
Hmm.
That I think that's really helped a lot of average golfers in the business, or in the community
Hmm.
of.
Hmm.
And how does the USGA been helping golf courses get their courses, I guess, measured, or do you, or is this more of a GPS type other system like from Google that barely puts this together?
Yeah,
I'm not
yeah.
sure. How does that work?
That's really separate and independent from the USGA. The best role that we've probably played in enabling that is changing the rules of golf.
Hmm.
So in rules parlance, they're called distance measuring devices, DMDs. And for a long time, it was thought by traditionalists in the game that one of the skills that should be expected of the golfer is the ability to judge distance.
Yeah.
And so we disallowed distance measuring devices in the rules of golf. So you couldn't post a score for handicap purposes. Certainly in a competition, you couldn't use one. That's changed. Because while the electronic tool may not have been available, there were always yardages marked on sprinkler heads or
Yeah.
white stakes in the edges
Yeah.
of the
Red
fairway.
stakes. Right.
And it's like, you know what, that information's readily available. We can actually improve pace of play and the experience of the golfer by allowing them to use these devices. So we softened our position on that. But it's really the vendors, the individual vendors. It's a sort of private sector technological development. So we haven't been in it on the technology side, but we've certainly changed our outlook and philosophy on them to enable changes in the way that golfers can use these devices.
So you talk a little bit about the green section course consulting services.
Mhm.
Let's talk a little bit about that and what type of services does that group offer,
Sure.
for the normal
Yeah.
owner?
Yeah. So exciting for us. We're celebrating 100 years of the green section this year. So the
Wow.
USGA's
Right.
green section was founded in 1920.
Okay.
So we've been in this sort of environmental space for 100 years.
Oh, wow.
While many industries have just sort of found the value of being green from a marketing perspective, or
Mm-hmm.
even from a sustainability and operations perspective, we've been in this space for 100 years with the game, and I think through that time have provided a lot of value. The green section originally started with a focus on developing best practices and new varieties of turfgrass to
Mm-hmm.
create better playing surfaces and a better experience for the golfer. What's fun about that is our original testing was done at the Arlington Turf Gardens in Arlington, Virginia, now
Okay.
home to the Pentagon.
Oh,
So
wow.
where the
Okay.
Pentagon sits today was actually built on the site of the USGA's original turfgrass plots back in 1920.
Oh, nice.
And we have almost continuously for 100 years supported innovation in turfgrass science. Almost any one who has a front lawn, a front yard, or a backyard that you mow and maintain, the grass that's in your lawn was probably developed with money and support that came from the USGA through the years. We have invested heavily in identifying strains of turfgrass, and again, initially it was about providing a better playing surface.
Mm-hmm.
But beginning in about the 1970s, that research program started to evolve and become as much environmentally focused as it was on playing conditions. Varieties of turf grass that require fewer inputs because they're disease resistant, because they're drought tolerant, because they're saltwater tolerant. So there's new
Mm-hmm.
grasses out there. Seashore paspalum grass is now being been developed to the point where it can be used on a golf course and be saltwater tolerant.
Wow.
Wastewater, recycled water, has high salinity content, and a
Yep.
lot of grasses can't withstand recycled water. Well, paspalum grass can handle that salinity content. So we work through uh, major land grant universities around the country and their turf grass breeding programs to identify and develop better turf grasses that can be used not just on golf courses, but on your front yard, in community parks, on soccer fields and baseball fields. USGA grasses are in NFL stadiums and Major League
Mm-hmm.
Baseball stadiums. We do a lot of work, and I think that turf grass program has been really important for the game. So I'd start there and I'd highlight that. What we learn through our research programs is disseminated through our education program. So the green section has three primary components: turfgrass research, education program, and the course consulting service. So information gets to the field through our education program. Most visibly, it's our green section record. We have a digital newsletter that goes out every 2 weeks. It
Mm-hmm.
has content that's customized for each region of the country,
Okay.
understanding what's been going on with weather issues or particular past challenges that have arisen, and providing practical advice that course managers, owners, operators can use to maintain their golf courses better. We do a lot of educational programming. And then this final piece is the course consulting service, originally called the Turf Advisory Service. That started in 1951.
Okay.
So that is nearing 70 years of CCS being a tool for the golf community. And so, as I mentioned earlier, we have agronomists around the country. They'll go and spend a half a day or a full day working with a golf course superintendent, a green committee, a club president, consulting on particular issues. And it could be something like developing a master plan for that golf courses that sort of moves them into a place where they're just providing better playing conditions, or they're dealing with they're addressing their desires to be more environmentally responsible. It could be an immediate problem.
Mm-hmm.
We've
Mm-hmm.
had a lot of problems in the Northeast this year because of pretty severe drought
Right.
in New England through this fall or through the summer, translated to a lot of turf loss
Mm-hmm.
in the fall, and these courses need sort of immediate help. The superintendent doesn't necessarily have the experience, the breadth of knowledge. We deal with thousands of golf courses a year, and that collective knowledge can inform best practices for moving forward. So it's really those three channels where we deliver sort of support. Then you mentioned it earlier, so let me touch on it. Complementary to the green section is our research, science, and innovation team. And that was a new group we spun up at the USGA about 5 or 6 years ago, which is really a sort of R&D group. They started with pace of play. The pace of play problem, they're the ones that really developed the golf course tool that we've been talking about. They're the ones that brought in the GPS units. Their challenge is an opportunity really is to sort of leverage data and technologies to find ways to improve the game. So broadly, they look at a broad set of issues, but naturally their work aligns very closely with the work of the green section. And we've brought those two teams really sort of together and into alignment. So they're reinforcing one another.
So is your resource management program there? Is that something you guys developed internally in-house? I mean, you got your own developers and your own, people doing the whole conceptual design on that?
Yeah, we have the scientists in-house and on the team
Hmm.
to bring the expertise to it. We have a developer on staff to help develop the technology. A lot of the coding on some of these tools actually gets done offshore,
Okay.
as everyone does. So we don't have a room full of coders,
Okay.
but they're in Romania these days.
Oh, wow.
A
Okay.
lot of great coding work is being done there, but really management and oversight development of the tool, all of that sort
Yeah.
of coming from the USGA.
Sure. Sure. Well, so what type of partnerships do you guys have with universities on the turf grass thing? I mean, I'm
Yeah.
from Indiana, and so I'm just down the road from Purdue, and I know they've got a
Yep.
pretty nice agronomy program there, turf management system, and I think Pete Dye has been a big supporter of that organization there, and developed
Mhm.
and actually designed a few golf courses up there. So, talk about what that looks like for you guys in partnerships.
Yeah. So the longest sort of history of the partnerships with the universities has really come through. We call it TERP, the Turfgrass and Environmental Research Program,
Hmm.
and what it really is it's a grant program where annually we have a research. Well, there's a small committee of turfgrass experts and golf experts from around the country
Hmm.
that each year meet a couple times a year, set priorities for the program. And some of those may be turfgrass breeding opportunities. Some of those may be about sort of pest control and disease opportunities. We may be looking at, we focused TERP for a couple years now just on water.
Hmm.
Specifically gave them the challenge to say the golf community needs to reduce its consumption of water by 25%. How do we do this simply through turf grass?
Hmm.
We give them specific challenges. And basically, an RFP goes out to the turf grass community. We'll take in proposals and then we fund the proposals that we think are most promising. All of that research is carried out um, by the breeding programs or by the turfgrass programs at universities around the countries, and they do span the breadth of the country because we want to understand
The regions.
geographic,
Yeah.
regional issues, regional challenges, turf issues, and then we sort of closely monitor and then publish the results. And those results are published within the scientific community by the academic researchers, and then they're pulled into the golf community and distributed through our educational programs and Green Section Record. We have, in the last couple of years, expanded our work a little bit more with the University of Minnesota to try to become a little broader in the types of topics that we're working on. So
Hmm.
Minnesota's got a great turf grass program, but they also have a golf course, a university-owned golf course that's had challenges. I'm going to just call them sustainability challenges,
Hmm.
both economic and environmental, and just sort of social, the quality of the experience they were providing for their customers. And the university started to say, well, what if we use that golf course not just as a recreational amenity for our students, but actually as a laboratory
I
and a
get it. Yeah.
tool? Yep. And so, how do you? And we've done some interesting things with the University of Minnesota. I think the best thing we're working on right now is a natural capital resource program
Hmm.
where we're trying to understand the economic value of a golf course to the community that it serves.
Oh, okay.
And NatCap is co-sponsored with the World Wildlife Fund, Stanford University, University of Minnesota, and someone's going to kill me because there's another partner whose name is going to escape me immediately, that's been helping us out with this particular program. And we're basically saying, look, a golf course delivers true economic value to a golf course beyond simply an economic generator of greens fees or F&B
Right.
revenue. The golf course provides value as for stormwater containment.
Sure.
And so there's an economic value. If that water was going into a water management system, into a city's sort of sewer system and management system, there's an economic cost. But if that can be channeled and retained on the golf course and the golf course can use it, it provides economic value. Golf courses are important habitats for pollinators. And we
Sure.
all know what's
Wildlife.
happening with a
Yeah.
crash in pollinator communities. There is
Hmm.
an economic value to the pollinator habitat that it provides for local agricultural, for local farms and local agriculture. Can we quantify that?
Hmm.
So we're developing a model, and it's, I guess it's supposed in some ways it's akin to the facility tool. We're looking at a map of the golf course and trying to figure out all the ways that it delivers value, quantifying
Value.
that. Golf courses are heat sinks. A golf course is typically 3 to 4 degrees cooler than the surrounding environment. So it provides cooling value in the hot summer months. That's a reduction for the immediate neighbors. It could be a reduction in their air conditioning bills,
Sure.
right? So let's think in a more sophisticated and nuanced way about the value that golf course is providing its community. So as community leaders think about the presence of that golf course in the community, they think about the resources it does consume, how
Hmm.
much water do they want to allocate, how much um, uh, sort of incentive can they provide and support in that golf course operation, or if it's a town or true municipal golf course owned by the town or a county,
Hmm.
do they want to? Is it okay to operate that at something of an operating loss because it's delivering economic value outside of what it's generating? Again, just in greens fees.
Sure. Well,
Um,
there's also, I would imagine, property value
yep,
implications too. Your home's around a real nice golf course that increases the property value. That's an input.
it's really true.
Yeah.
Absolutely true. Absolutely. So that's an interesting, and that is, I'd say, a great extension of the concept of the university partnership, where we can take it outside of the
I like it.
traditional work that we would usually do, and do some broader things. So we're going to continue to explore those university partnerships and find some other opportunities.
That's great. No, that's good. So it seems like the biggest environmental cost to a golf course sounds like water.
Mhm.
Yeah, I may be wrong, but water seems like one. If it's not that, what is it, and then how can it be reduced? What
Yep.
that cost?
Yeah, it's water. It's all issues water, and I'll say water consumption and water quality are the two that we're going to focus on the most. So
Hmm.
water consumption is literally, can we reduce the amount of irrigated water that's putting onto that golf course and still provide
Hmm.
a greater, and then quality issues become, I think we can be honest enough and fair enough to know and understand that golf courses historically, and if we go back 30, 40, 50 years, we weren't putting great stuff on golf courses. We were putting lots
Hmm.
of it on that golf course.
Hmm.
And whether it was surface waters that were being contaminated or groundwaters being contaminated, um, the golf industry created some problems. Fortunately, 50 years later, science, best practices, really good education has improved that to the point where golf courses actually offer significant benefits. Surface waters entering a golf course are dirtier than when they leave that golf
Then
course, right?
that's
The golf
good.
course becomes it's a biofilter
Yeah.
that's helping clean those surface waters, right? Those things are important. So let me get back to your question, but I want to frame sort of the two issues or opportunities that are there. On the consumption side, I think there's some important things that are happening. There's our tool that we're creating that helps you understand sort of areas of turf that are being maintained that you can take out of play.
Hmm.
There's real advances in soil moisture sensors that are happening, and we're looking to integrate those soil moisture sensors into that type of technology into our golf course digital map. But the research is showing that at different times of the year, depending on the grass's productivity, it requires more or less water. Historically, superintendents have simply tried to maintain a certain moisture level in the soil that they think is ideal. They do that year round. We now understand that there are ebbs and flows to that need to apply irrigated water or maintain moisture levels. We can get much more nuanced in our application of water. New irrigation systems that are being installed at golf courses now have controls to the individual sprinkler head. It used to be you turned on the water for the
Certain
whole golf
valve
course
and
and you to right
yeah, that
off
whole
would go
section
the
goes
spring.
off.
Exactly. 4 holes are suddenly going at once, whether they need water or not. And a golf
Yeah,
course, depending on very locally, may have dry spots, may have wet spots. You don't need to be irrigating if you can understand in a sophisticated way how your golf course reacts and your irrigation system allows you to apply water where you need it, you don't need it. You become a much more efficient user of water.
I gotta imagine though the infrastructure cost to really redesign a more appropriate irrigation system is kind of a salty pill for some of these golf courses to, absorb right
Mhm.
away,
Yep.
because they realize it's the water consumption that they want to reduce, but they also realize the infrastructure cost to make, to achieve that is going to be
Right.
a lot, right?
Yeah.
And are there incentives for these golf courses to do, that the USGA can provide or to help them achieve that and implement these types of irrigation tools?
Yeah. What we can do is demonstrate ROI for them.
Okay.
The ROI. So we don't have a mechanism right now. Maybe someday. We just relaunched the USGA's foundation about 2 years ago. And one of the places we would like to do some fundraising and hopefully be able to invest is in opportunities like this to help provide grants at the golf course level.
Mhm.
We just don't have the funding mechanism or the oversight mechanism in place right now to help 15,000 facilities that way. Maybe we'll get there someday, but our educational tools, our information, our data can really demonstrate strong ROI for them. And I think what I would say to your question is, there was a lot of golf course building in the 1980s, 1990s. All those golf courses or infrastructures approaching 25, 30 years old. It's probably
Mhm.
reached the end of its useful life. It's going to have to be replaced anyway. We can help them through that process, and we'll do a lot of that, helping them through the process of choosing the right equipment, designing an irrigation system the right way, finding the right partners that can help them put in a much more environmentally responsible irrigation system.
System.
That said, there are low cost solutions, and this is another sort of interesting piece of research that's come out of the golf sort of facility app. Um, you can make a change at the level of the individual sprinkler head.
Mhm.
A lot of golf courses, the throw on that sprinkler head is covering an area of turf that's much broader than. So let's take that tee that you want to irrigate because it's important for you that you can get the tee in the ground. It's not rock solid. There's grass on it. Um, Old sprinkler heads that went in a circle are irrigating that tee surface, but they're also irrigating
Everything else.
270
Yeah,
degrees that they don't need to be irrigating.
sure.
Give me a new sprinkler head that's got a confined throw to it. I'm irrigating just that T-top
Yep,
surface,
yep.
and I'm saving money.
And
We
with
went
less
we
water.
we went to a golf course in Texas. We mapped their irrigation heads. They were irrigating the neighboring roadways.
Yeah.
Right, they're throwing water on asphalt on the road that goes by. All they need to do is change their sprinkler heads.
See,
And
that's great. That's a perfect example of,
mhm,
environmental sustainability and reducing your cost of
yep.
water and use of it. That's great. I love that.
And that kind of just change the sprinkler head is not a high cost value, high cost investment for that golf course, and they're going to
Mhm.
generate immediate savings. And sometimes they just need someone, an outside independent third party, to come in to ask those questions, to map that golf course and its operation for them, to find those opportunities where they can improve what they're doing.
Sure.
So that there's your consumption. Oh, and maybe one other point on consumption side: new turf
Oh,
grasses that have
yeah.
been developed in the last 10 or 20 years and there's been breeding for um, drought resistance and low growth rates. I
Mhm.
think we should touch on that. What's coming next in turf grass? But for people who might not understand, these turf grass breeding programs. What these professors and their graduate students do in the summer, they'll go to the Alps, they'll go to mountain regions around the world, they'll just literally look for unique grasses that have been created naturally,
Mm-hmm.
natural process of evolution. They look for unique characteristics in those turf grasses. They bring them back, they breed them, they test them on plots, and they can start to see different qualities in different types of grasses and say, okay, here's a grass from the Austrian Alps that's actually behaving in a really interesting way. It's showing disease resistance. It's showing drought tolerance. Can we develop this and breed it in such a way that it could be deployed on a large scale,
Mm-hmm.
and help us use a lot less water? Where this is going, which is really interesting, we think the next stage is going to be looking at a family of grasses we call buffalo grasses,
Mm-hmm.
really common in the West, in the Rockies.
Yep.
There are grasses that we know provide a good enough playing surface, need to be watered twice a year and
Oh
mown
my
twice
gosh.
a year. Watered
Wow.
twice a year and mown twice a year.
Wow.
Um, we can grow it on a 1 by 1 meter test plot, and it's
Mm-hmm.
fabulous, but it's not productive enough, meaning it's not producing enough seed head to
Oh,
make it
to
viable
grow,
that you could put it across 50 acres of a golf course.
propagate
Um,
itself.
so can the breeding programs work and preserve those really good properties, but increase productivity of the seed head to
Mm-hmm.
create a product that would be really helpful? You're going to drive some real changes in water consumption if you can change the grass types. Golf courses
See,
will have, yeah, golf courses that were built in 1910 have turf grass that's 110 years old. That plant, that biomass that keeps regenerating new blades of grass every year, that's fundamentally a plant that's 100 plus years old.
sure.
We have new grasses, and a golf course, we're working with golf courses now to replace just their grasses. It's a sort of half-year process to do it. You can keep half the golf course in play, allow your customers to have somebody continue to play, but the ROI investment on it's like 2.5 years, to recover the cost in terms of your
I
resource
got you.
savings.
Well, so what's the response of, say the normal municipal golf course? I mean, we got lots of municipal golf courses across the country. The
Mhm.
average golfer. I mean, what is the response from those companies, those individual owners in, reaching out and saying, "Look, I need help from USGA to improve my operations." Do you get pushback, or do you get a lot of interest, or how do you engage them, and is it something that's really happening where they really want and seek this type of stuff?
They are very interested in the information. So the sort of municipal golf course, the city-owned golf course or the county-owned golf courses presents some unique challenges. You've
Mhm.
got operators, you've got the superintendent at the very local level who really understands where the opportunities are, where the challenges are, how they could be better. And I think the desire's always strongly there. But
Mhm.
then government comes into play, right? There's layers of
Yeah.
bureaucracy. They're not always the
Right.
decision maker, and
Right.
there could be someone at a different level in a parks department and a parks and recs, the department
Mhm.
that is simply looking at the situation and saying, look, I can't give you more money to do this, or I can't give you, you need to push as many golfers across your property as you possibly can.
Mhm.
Creates bottlenecks and pace of play problems, and the experience isn't really good. But boy, they don't understand the issues. They're just driving play.
Mhm.
So we're in the process of really rethinking how we can reach and educate decision makers.
Mhm.
It's the superintendent who's making the choice. In a lot of cases, they are professionally trained. They've got a college degree in what they're doing. They're very well intentioned individuals. They're just not empowered.
Right.
So we're trying to reimagine our programs. We had a program earlier in the year,
Mhm.
while we could still travel, and get together in a room. We got together golf course owners and operators in Southern California, public golf courses, and had
Okay.
a 1 day forum, and invited not just the superintendent, but the decision maker and the administrator to start to talk about the challenges and the opportunities that are there. We're going to be looking to do more of that, to expand the audience of who we're talking to and who we're educating, so that you've got a community of decision makers that are collectively working, to deploy best practices to come up with a solution that they can all support and work with the right way. And then hopefully, if they see and understand that facility is being maintained in a responsible way, they're
Mhm.
willing to allocate money. They're willing to make an investment into some of these infrastructure changes that ultimately are going to be responsible to drive the biggest change. And look,
Right. No, that's
there
good.
are communities who are doing this. They're doing it really effectively, and that's the final piece of this, is telling those stories, elevating them, sharing their best practices,
Yeah,
sharing their stories.
showcasing them. Yeah,
Mhm. Yep.
absolutely. I think you mentioned the ROI, conversation. I mean, once they kinda understand that, I think they'll move off center. They'll realize they need to kinda, make a change, but that's great. So, one thing I saw recently on your website, recently was the, USGA's commitment to climate change. Talk a little bit about your organization's commitment and the signatory, requirements for the United Nations Sports, for Climate Action Initiative.
For Climate Action Initiative, yeah. Really, really interesting program that the UN has developed to encourage sharing of knowledge, expertise, and best practices across the sports community.
Mhm,
Um, Sports play, I think, a really interesting role in our society, certainly in American society. Very visible, these sort of massive consumer products, consumer entertainment experiences. Um, People are emotionally invested in the teams that they follow.
mhm,
And I think, from a pure marketing perspective, the UN has come to understand that if the sports community collectively is raising awareness on climate challenges and climate opportunities,
mhm,
it's going to be a great way to reach a mass market with really important messages. And so the UN's been looking for organizations, and in some cases they're leagues, in some cases they're teams, in some cases they're national governing bodies like the USGA, that share a commitment that share a concern about what's happening with our climate, and are sharing, making investments. To address some of those climate issues. For us, I think we're in a little bit different place. For some sports, it really, there are opportunities in and around the spectator experience.
mhm.
The fan experience is kind of what I'm thinking about, right? Plastic consumption,
Well,
for F and
yeah.
B, in a stadium of 80,000 people. Um, uh, we operate in a slightly different space, in that the work of the organization for 100 years has been directly invested in reducing the consumption of resources in the playing surface.
Mhm.
We're impacting playing surfaces rather than the consumer fan experience that surrounds the sport. And I think, for the folks at the UN who are leading this, when we expressed an interest, I think they were very eager to get us involved, primarily. And there's a couple different parts of the initiative, a couple different working groups. They've asked us to be a leader and a voice
Mhm.
in this real in the applied space. So not in the marketing space. It's not about carbon offsets and buying credits,
Right.
which some, for some teams, that's a really important way they can demonstrate their climate commitment, because they don't have that ability to fundamentally change a stadium and its infrastructure.
Right.
We operate in a very different way, and the technology that we develop, the turf grasses we develop, the tools we develop, again, they're applicable on any playing surface where grass is grown. That's an awful lot of sports and awful lot of playing fields around the world. So we're going to bring that. That's our primary contribution to the effort, is bringing our knowledge and expertise that we've gained through our turfgrass and environmental research programs, and showing and demonstrating ways that it can apply broadly across other sports and other landscapes.
Do you guys have an app that you use that a course operator could use to track water consumption that you guys can measure over time for various courses throughout the country, and based on the implemented, best manager practices, can track the impact of your
Mhm.
efforts? Is there anything that you guys do in that space?
Yeah, so not yet, but we're getting there.
I love that
And
idea.
the facility tool is going to be the way to do it, and the way to do it really is to partner with the irrigation companies.
Okay.
So, um, Toro,
Yeah.
Rainbird, Deer, the irrigation companies their centralized computer systems are collecting that data and reporting it at the individual facility level.
Okay.
We're in conversations with them, with that community right now, about sort of being able to leverage their data, aggregate their data,
Mm-hmm.
and be able to create some industry reports on a broad level. So if they can
That's great.
report at the facility level, we'll be able to do a representative sampling, different regions, different types of golf courses, different budgets of golf courses. All that influences how much water they're using. We'll be able to report that. We've done it historically. We started about 12 years ago in partnership with the Golf Course Superintendents Association of America. They're based in Lawrence, Kansas. They're really important partners of ours.
Mm-hmm.
We started to do what we call the environmental profile series. And so this was reported data. We
Mm-hmm.
went to facilities with a research tool, a paper research tool, and we asked them to report on. So there was a GCSAA profile on water consumption, on energy consumption, on nutrient consumption, on pesticide, herbicide, fungicide consumption, and on energy consumption. So we established a baseline about 12 years ago. About 5 years ago, we redid that.
Mm-hmm.
Um, so we could see the impact. I mean, really good stories there. In a decade, the golf industry had reduced its consumption of water by 22%. It had
That's
reduced
great.
its consumption of some key nutrients, so fertilizers, phosphorus, nitrogen, that's where you present the problems for water quality. Reduced some of those consumptions by 40% on the nutrient side. So we were able to see and understand that our educational programs and the tools that we were developing were helpful. But when you do that survey sort of every 10 years, it's probably not the frequency we're looking for.
To really
So
measure. Yeah.
we're hoping through partnerships with irrigation suppliers, and maybe it's even nutrient suppliers too, right? They understand how much product they're selling and delivering to
Selling.
their
So like
clients.
Scott's and people like
Yep.
that, right?
Yep.
Yeah.
So if we can aggregate that data, again, sample and sort of aggregate geographically, we can probably get a good annual picture of the types of progress we're making. Things will swing because of changes in weather patterns. Can change pretty radically how much water you're using. So year to year might not be the best data because you'll see a whole lot of noise in those trend lines. But if
Right.
we look at it over 10 years, we understand how the industry is improving. And that's, sort of our goal. We put a challenge statement out to the industry in 2017 at our innovation symposium in Vancouver, Canada. And he said, look, our goal is to reduce critical resource consumption by 25% by 2025. Let's all work together to do that. And for
Try
us
to
to,
achieve that goal.
yeah, try to
Yeah.
achieve that. And, we know the progress that we were able to make over the first 10-year span between the environmental profile reports. We're continuing to work and plug away there. I'd love for us to have better kind of real-time data,
Mm-hmm.
but we're gonna do that through partnerships, and we're having those conversations now.
That's great. No, that's exciting. How does the USGA get involved or encourage or maybe new golf course designs to incorporate sustainable
Yep.
aspects to these design? Are you involved with that?
The American Society of Golf Course Architects is a really important partners of ours,
Mm-hmm.
and they're actually really those guys are at the forefront of this.
Mm-hmm.
Whatever it is in the DNA of a golf course architect, a lot of these guys care deeply about these issues, and so they work very closely with our green section. What's interesting about that facility tool, I described it as a what if. There are actually architects who are now using it before they build a golf course. So they are using our tool as they start to map and design,
Mm-hmm.
based on kind of regional data. They can input and they can understand what it means for resource consumption, and they can actually modify their designs before they go and put it out, actually construct that golf course. So we can inform, and we do inform their planning process. Again, we've done it mostly education in the past, but we can do that more in the future. Sorry about that.
No, it's all right. I understand.
We
We're
can do
coming
that.
up against the hour.
We can do that more. We can do that more in the future through technology. We hope. But that community is very receptive to these issues. They've actually, in the let's say 2 years ago, they put out a new tool of their own. It's called the Golf Course of the Future, and it's on
Mm-hmm.
their website. And you can go in, and it's sort of a hypothetical golf course, but it will share best practices and opportunities for everything from lighting design.
Okay.
If we're going to worry about light pollution and dark sky opportunities on the golf course, to irrigation system selections, to better materials for cart paths because they're permeable asphalts that reduce runoff. They've got a terrific tool. So I'd say our research and our expertise informs a lot of their design work. And we're really proud to call them partners on a lot of different fronts. I think the biggest thing that we can probably do, and where the most innovation could happen in the game, is actually just reimagining the surface on which the game is played.
Sure.
Does a golf course need to be 18 holes? Can it be 12 holes and on a smaller footprint? Could it be a 6-hole golf course and still provide a great experience? Because the consumer's looking for something different, but does every golf course need to sit on 150 acres and use that much resource?
Yeah.
If we can redefine the playing surface, put it on a smaller footprint, bring some of those smaller footprints into urban areas where green space is desperately needed, or where there's opportunities to reimagine and reinvent damaged landscapes, we think that we can deliver both great golf experience, but also real value to the communities in which those reimagined golf courses sit.
I like that. Yeah, I think you guys are doing such a great job over there with the USGA and all the innovative ideas you guys are putting together, and just the support of the golf community. It's fantastic, and I really appreciate you coming onto the show today, Rand, and just really, it's been an honor. I know you're hugely invested in the USGA, and thank you for your leadership there. I'm a huge golfer, as I mentioned, and I love to get out and play. I just came back from a nice little men's weekend down at the Hot Springs, Arkansas, the Villages down there. I don't know if you ever played the Villages in Hot Springs, but to really enjoy that location. They got 9 golf courses in a gated community. It's a lot of fun.
I have not been down there, but I mentioned the GCSA earlier. One of their recent past presidents is a superintendent down there and has done great things from the environmental perspective with that golf course, and in helping implement some real responsible practices. So really neat place.
Fantastic. Well, thanks for coming on the show today. I really appreciate it. I'm just a huge fan of the golf and you guys and what you're doing. And of course, boy, this season's been a little interesting, hasn't it? For golf.
It sure has been. Yeah, Sean, thanks for a chance to talk about what we've doing, and thanks for the distraction. It's been an upside down year for the USGA, but interesting, great year for golf, right? Golf participation's up. It's one of those things that you can do in a socially distanced way.
Absolutely,
That's
naturally
safe.
Yeah.
It's an outdoor environment, and fortunately for the game, we've seen some real surge in interest in play through the summer, and hope that we can continue that into the future. The game offers such rich rewards for people. And look, now that there's a long arc of a story here, now that golf courses have really understood and embraced the role that they can play in healthier environments, the role that they can hopefully play in climate change. We're going to continue to invest. We're going to continue to work really hard in these areas. People like you that help us tell the story, but also that push and challenge the owners and operators where they play. This is what's going to drive change for our community. It's going to take a continued community investment in these interest education about the opportunities, and we'll drive change. We are confident that we can deliver.
Love it. No, this has been great. Rand, keep doing the great work you're doing. I really appreciate the opportunity again. We'll talk to you soon, hopefully.
Very good. Sean, thanks so much.
You bet. Bye-bye.
Bye.